I hereby call to order the April 26th, 2023 meeting of the City of Prescott General Plan Committee. Board members present, when I call your name: James McCarver. Here. Gary Warb.
Present.
Deborah Thalassides.
Here.
Don Michaelman.
Here.
Rob Moyer.
Here.
Jim Huffman.
Present.
Ralph Hess.
Here.
Mary Frederickson.
Here.
Andre Carmen.
Here.
Terry Sapio.
Here.
And Ted Gambogi is present. Let's see. We have some city council people, and I saw our mayor here. Phil Good is somewhere. I see Eric Moore. I see Steve Siska, and I see Kathy Rusing. Welcome. This is an open public meeting and is being recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, the public, local cable and/or radio stations, and may also be rebroadcast. The number of board members present today is 11, so that means it will require 6 votes for a majority. All parties wishing to be heard, including committee members, are required to state their name prior to speaking to ensure proper recordation. Members of the public are required to state their name and address for the record so we may know who was speaking and be able to contact them at a later date. I understand from Tammy that Chelsea has a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Chelsea Walton, Interim Community Development Director, and I just wanted to take the moment to do some housekeeping. The configuration today is to facilitate greater dialogue between committee members. As I understand, it can be somewhat difficult up at the dais to see across to the other end, so we're hoping that this helps facilitate communication. Please, when you want to speak, use the microphone, as this is being live streamed as well as recorded. So each of the tables has a microphone. Do try to speak into it. They don't pick up very well when they're too far away, so it's about right here that you need to have the microphone up close. So we'll use this one at this end of the table as a roaming mic for our presenter today, as well as when we get down to the public comment section. And we'll ask, in addition to the audio, that for the video, that any addressing speaker that is commenting kind of be over here in the location just below the screen. So thank you for that opportunity, sir, and I think we can move forward in the agenda, unless I missed something, Tammy.
So we'll hear minutes from the March meeting. Any comments, any modifications? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
I have a modification.
Oh, yeah, Ralph.
I think there was an omission from the minutes that I think were significant in that with regard to the motion to have the facilitator, Deb Thalassides and I were the dissenters. And the agenda reflects that I was the one who suggested we have the facilitator discussion. And I'm sure when, people look at this decades from now and want to see why the person who presented the facilitator issue voted against it, it would be helpful to have in the minutes that it was suggested that the interim community director be the facilitator, to which I had responded that no, I think someone should be from outside the organizational culture who acts as the facilitator. And that, I suggest, should be included in the minutes. And also, the minutes don't include the request from Deb Thalassides to amend the motion to appoint a facilitator from outside the city organization, which was not granted by the movement. And so to explain those dissenting votes, I think that should be included in the minutes.
Any objections? How would you reword that?
I'm pretty wordy. I don't know how to reword that.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to see the staff go back to the minutes and just put what was in go back to the recording and put that in the minutes.
You can do that? Okay, so any other? Oh, Don?
I move that the minutes be deferred to our next meeting, and then corrections could be made at that time, and we can vote on 2 minutes in one meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Gary Ward?
Second.
All those in favor?
Second.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tammy, you want to take over?
Okay, so for item B, we have a presentation from our Tourism and Economic Development Department. So each month at the beginning of the meeting, we will have a presentation from our departments coming in and educating you on their departments in relation to the general plan. So in front of you, we handed out this morning, and we're going to do this for every meeting and give comment if it doesn't work. So what we're hoping to get is the focus on the challenges of each department, our opportunities, and our goals. Because that's really what the general plan is about, is that we're looking at what are our challenges existing, what are opportunities we have over the next 5 to 10 years, and then goals. So it's each paper, one page has challenges and opportunities, and the other side has goals and other. So we put them like that so you can have them side by side. So as they're giving their presentations, you can jot down notes and comments, and then afterwards we can kind of go through and discuss it pending time. So, okay, I'll hand it over to John Hine.
Hi, everybody. We're still trying to figure out where we're going to stand, but I think for purposes so the camera doesn't have to follow me all around, I'm just going to kind of stay in this area. So, John Hine, I am the Community Outreach Manager for the city. I have 3 responsibilities under me: Community Outreach, Economic Development, and Tourism. We're really going to focus on the Economic Development and Tourism. I think I'm going to put this down because I don't need it. Thank you. So we'll focus on those, but I have a slideshow. This is very similar to one that we give to the Citizens Academy. Just kind of gives folks an overview of what we do, but we've also updated it with some new developments and some things that might be useful for your conversation. And I have to go down to advance. So just meeting the team. I'm here today. My colleague Ann Stewart is currently at an economic development conference in Tucson, and Christina Binkley is at a conference as well. And then we have a new member who didn't make it on the slide, but just started this week. Mike Kelly is in back over there. And Mike Kelly is going to be our group sales manager, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because it's part of our strategic plan to have someone like him on board. So we'll talk about that in the future. Again, just going to light brush on community outreach. One of my jobs is the public information officer for the city, doing external communications for the city, everything from media, press releases, assist the mayor with some of his letter writing and things like that. Also do presentations as well. Social media, Facebook, and Instagram primarily. So not really purposes of our discussion today, but just making you aware. So we'll dive into economic development. So we always like to share a definition. It's not the definition, but it's one that we like for economic development, which is to influence growth and the restructuring of an economy to enhance the economic well-being of a community through policies. So as an economic development team, we would like to have an area of emphasis, which is guided by council and by our leadership. And some of the areas of emphasis, these are types of businesses that we have over the years sought to attract in Prescott, including light manufacturing, supply chain companies, warehouse and distribution, aerospace and defense, aviation, high technology, cybersecurity, higher education, which we already have an abundance of that here, medical, tourism, and retail.
John,
Yes, sir.
Can we ask questions as
You bet.
go
Go
along?
ahead.
Thank you. When you look at these areas and you try to attract this business to the Prescott area, how do you integrate that with services and housing? Do you talk about the complete package, or?
Sure. Yeah, actually, we've got a slide that talks about it. So economic development is not just attracting businesses. It's helping businesses that are here stay successful. But it's also workforce development is an important part of economic development. Workforce development is a lot of things. It's education, making sure that our workforce is trained and capable of doing these jobs. But it's also affordable housing. It's finding a place for them to live. When we go out and attract a company, they have a series of questions about, what is Prescott like? What's the cost of living? What's the education like? How are the utility costs? So those are all things that we have to be aware of and respond to when we go. So I hope that answered your question. So elements of economic development: marketing and promotion, business recruitment, business retention, which is what we talked about, helping companies stay here and stay successful. Workforce development, again, education, housing, ecosystem for people to live and raise families here. Infrastructure development, roads, bridges, electric, gas utilities, making sure those are available. And then, of course, good policy and legislation. Certainly there's a lot of it discussed at the state level, but here with council direction on some of these policies as well.
John?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Don Michaelman. Are there types of industry we try not to encourage to come here?
That's a good question. So one of the things that we have to do is understand. We have to understand Prescott. We have to understand our ecosystem, our business system that we work under. What you did not see on that slide is notable is heavy manufacturing. I am not going to go out and ask for a Tesla auto plant to be built in Prescott. It's just not. We don't have the people, we don't have the workforce, we don't have the facilities, we don't have the natural amenities for heavy industry. So we get a lot of leads from the state. Phoenix is all about bringing, 1,000 job plants and, millions of square feet. We see these leads pass by, but we have to understand the ecosystem that we're working in. We're looking for small to medium-sized businesses, light manufacturing. The FedEx just opened their warehouse, started with 85 jobs, but they're good-paying jobs. It's a great facility, 200,000 square feet, doesn't use a lot of resources. So that's pretty ideal. So there's definitely heavy industry and some of those types of things that don't fit here we stay away from. Hope that answers your question.
John, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Gary Warp, after the last general plan, which I served on, in which one of the elements of that general plan, which was successful, was open space and trails, also used in Prescott Valley's project too. I took it on myself to do a national study of outdoor recreation as an economic development driver. And the results were quite astounding, and Chris Hoskin has confirmed that it's probably higher here. But for every dollar invested in outdoor recreation, there was a $3 return. Are you putting that under tourism?
Yeah, so actually, we're economic development and tourism, so right now I'm focusing on the economic development, the business attraction, but you're going to see later in the presentation some of that synergy. Deb.
John, I just had one other, Deb Thalassides. So there's a lot of excitement around attracting chip manufacturers or Intel-type companies, and they use a tremendous amount of water, and they require some additional wastewater treatment processes. So where does the availability of water factor into what you're looking at?
Yeah, and so that gets back to what we talked to: heavy industry, heavy use of natural resources. Those are some businesses in terms of the attraction part that we tend to steer away from. So that's important to note. The other thing is, if we landed a plant with 1,000 people right now, do we have the workforce? Do we have the housing? Do we have the infrastructure to support it? I don't think so. So that's kind of where we stay away from. But we don't actively attract certain types of those types of users. We definitely look at the resources.
Do you do a calculation of what their water needs would be versus how much we have in reserve?
So when we get a lead from the state, they're very good about, talking about water use, water and wastewater gallons, per day. So it's pretty easy to figure out how quickly that gets used up. So it's usually we know in advance before we bid on someone to bring them here. Any other questions? So ongoing initiatives, just some of the things that we're working on right now. So, it's economic development is partly sales, partly marketing. It's a relationship business. So we certainly want to know and work closely with property owners, the commercial real estate professionals here, so we're very involved with them, have good relationships with them, follow up on leads that we get from the state or from others, assist with site selection. So if a business is thinking about moving here, they'll probably call a commercial real estate broker, and the broker will have 4 or 5 sites to show them. Hopefully, we'll get involved in that conversation at that point and be able to go to those site selection, have them take a look and see what makes sense and try to help them understand what the city can do to help them. So we like to be there at the site selection process stage. Creating and provide tools and resources, help people get through. Once they decide to come here, then they have to work with the city quite a bit, Chelsea's office. So we work very closely with community development to make sure a business understands what it's going to take for them to get permitting, what the time frame is, what's required from the city, the water budget. Some of those allocations are all part of that conversation. So we try to provide them as much information as we can to help them make their decision. And business retention, again, working with businesses that are already here, it's a lot cheaper to keep a business than it is to attract a business. So we want to make sure our businesses here are happy. We have several that are expanding and seeking to expand. So we want to be part of that conversation and help them through that process. Marketing is an important part of what we do. A couple years ago, the city hired a great agency called Heart and Soul Media. They're based in Phoenix, but they have homes up here, so they know Prescott really well. So what we wanted to do is tell the story about Prescott, that it's a beautiful place to live, it's a great place to work, it's a great business ecosystem. We interviewed a few of our business leaders, Mike McCormick with CP Tech, John Haas with Center for the Future, and Mark Borowitz with Pure Wafer. Put them on video, talked about the lifestyle here, and it's really been a very successful campaign. We're going to come back to council and ask for another couple of years with them because they're really putting some good material together. That's on our website, goes out on social media marketing as well. Any questions? Okay. So some of the updates, and most of you probably should know about all these. The FedEx facility opened in November of 2022. East Spire Sports Complex, that's a great example of adaptive reuse. The big box stores are closing all over the country. What do we do with them? How do we fill 100,000 square feet? I think this was one of the most creative adaptive reuses that I've seen in a long time to see this activated for pickleball and parties and events. So we're really excited about that. YRMC is doing their urgent care that's over by Trader Joe's and the ranch area. Exceptional Healthcare, they are doing a new 24-hour emergency room that's under construction out on Highway 69. Gateway Mall, Prescott Gateway Mall has a new owner. A lot of us are very happy about that. We felt it was really neglected over the last few years. We've been in touch with the owner several times. He's worked with community development. He's going to really clean up that area, light it up, freshen it up, and then start trying to attract retail tenants. But also looking at other uses than retail, because malls, as we know them from 30 years ago, are changing. So hopefully that the new owner will work with us to help them with that. Initiatives for 2023, airport industrial commercial development. The air park area around the airport is filling up. I think there's been like 28 or 29 new pieces of property that's been brought under contract in the last couple of years, but helping them fill those spaces. A lot of those are small. They're 1, 2, 3 acre. They're not going to be a big company coming in, but it's a great place for us to help market and support the marketing of those spaces.
Do you have an idea how much revenue the airport, or how big a business is the airport industrial park?
We don't have exact numbers. We have, what we know is that it's been very active in terms of the leasing the last few years. As you know, if you've been around it, a lot of the land sat vacant for many years up until 2 or 3 years ago. We don't have a dollar figure on it yet, but we certainly can capture that. But it is 1, 2, 3 acre parcels. These are small to medium-sized companies, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 employees, and it's continuing to fill up. We assist, again, with the site selection and helping to bring those companies here. All right, I think we're going to start transitioning here. Just some of the partners, we are very blessed in Prescott to have a great higher education system here. Yavapai College, Embry-Riddle, Prescott College. We talk about for workforce development. Yavapai College does a lot of worker training. They do some customized programs for some businesses, but they can also create new training for new businesses coming in. So they're a great partner as well. And then Embry-Riddle, of course, just having them here is a great attractor, especially for the aerospace industry. In Prescott College, NACOG is a great partner there, Northern Arizona Council of Governments. NACOG provides federal funding for workforce training, usually a 50-50 match for the first 6 months for a new employee for training, so that's very helpful. Of course, the airport, the Chamber of Commerce, the state agency is the Arizona Commerce Authority, and then the Arizona Office of Tourism as well. So we work with all these agencies to help sell Prescott. So this is we start to transition into tourism and economic development, how they work together. So tourism, in and of itself, definitely drives the local economy. We rely on sales tax here for our city, and a lot of that's driven by outside people visiting. Sustainable businesses, hotel venues, restaurants, retailers, museums, and other attractions. The desirability improves property values and encourages local investment. We've seen a lot of that in the last few years. Creates tax revenue, as we talked about, which supports public improvements. And it's a source for economic development. We've had several cases of people that have moved their companies here that started out as visitors and fell in love with the place, fell in love with the area, and just said, you know what, I'm either going to start my business here or move my business here. And Mike McCormick with CP Tech was one of those folks that brought his business here. So when people visit here and fall in love with the place, they want to move here, but sometimes they move their businesses here too and create that extra economy. And tourism improves quality of life, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. So the City of Prescott Tourism Office, we just kind of rebranded ourselves as Experience Prescott, and this came out of strategic planning that we did last March. So we are what's called a destination management organization. We are an organization that promotes this location as an attractive travel destination. You may have heard of convention and visitor bureaus in bigger cities. That's a membership base. That's more like a chamber of commerce where you have to sign up as a member in order to get promoted. As a DMO for Prescott, we promote all of our attractions. It's not member-based. We're responsible for promoting the area as an attractive travel destination, enhancing our public image overall. Developing long-term travel and tourism strategy for destination, creating marketing and public relations plans and campaigns, and again, generating tax revenue that benefits the community and improves quality of life, and promoting the destination as a whole, and not just one sector or a membership.
John?
Yes, sir.
Is Don Michaelman,
Yep.
Is there a radius that we find that our tourists will come here versus within this distance, most likely this distance?
Sure, yeah. We actually do a lot of research in that regard. I didn't bring a lot of that here, but we're able to keep track of where visitors are coming from. Informally at special events, sometimes in our fair we'll do a survey, hey, where are you coming from to see us today? In the tourism sector, we generally 90 miles is sort of the magic number for if someone's coming from 90 miles or more, it's likely that they're going to stay here overnight instead of making the trip. So that 90-mile radius is really important for us. When we're talking to event organizers, we try to encourage them to market outside of the 90-mile radius because it brings people here to stay in our hotels. And the old term is heads in beds. But that's what we go for. But of course, everybody, even if they're coming for the day, they do spend a lot of money here, and that type of thing. So the radius, we do tracking that tells us where people come from. I think I've got a slide that talks about our top markets, but definitely Phoenix is one of them. Obviously local, and then we go to Phoenix, Tucson, and then I think probably California, Southern California is number 3. So we do track all that. Any other questions?
I recently spent an inordinate amount of time around the courthouse, and I can't think of a state that I didn't talk to someone from. So there's lots of Washington, Oregon, California, New Jersey, Idaho, Florida that visit Prescott.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have the ability to track that. So some of our partners here in tourism, again, Arizona Office of Tourism, the Chamber, The Downtown Partnership, they put on the concerts during the summer. Arizona Christmas City, which is kind of all of the events wrapped under one umbrella. The museums and the centers, all of them are partners, and of course the rodeo. So I think you all know all this, but this helps us kind of stay focused on what makes Prescott special. What are some of our assets? Arizona's Christmas City, that we were designated that by the governor in 1989. World's oldest rodeo in 1888. Prescott National Forest, 145,000 acres of pine forest. 470 plus miles of trails and growing every year, thanks to Mr. Hosking and his people, continuing to grow that. Our lakes, our museums, our centers, our airport, of course, our institutes of higher learning, they bring tourism. When you have a graduation in Embry-Riddle, our hotel rooms are full. So we get visitors from some of their business activities as well. And of course, the Regional Medical Center. And our Heritage Trail is something we developed a few years ago to help people understand the history around Whiskey Row. So I want you to be aware of another public body like yourself. It's the Tourism Advisory Committee. This is actually, the committee has been formed loosely since 2009, but was formalized by Mayor Oberg and City Council in 2018. This is a city committee. It's a public meeting that about 10 times a year is when we meet. They are an advisory committee related to marketing, promotion, and programming for the tourism office. They're also charged with administering the annual TAC PAC grants. We're just in the middle of that cycle. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but a lot of the tourism dollars are used to go back to the community in the form of grants and things for the events to help them market. We'll talk more about that. And then TAC's role is advisory only. Council has the final authority in grant allocation, budgeting, and everything, but TAC is great to help our team get direction and present information to council. So one of the things that we want to do is make sure our community, and I think this may be important for what you're doing, is remembering how tourism positively impacts the local community. A lot of the bed tax dollars do come back into the community. I mentioned the grants, but also for improvements in infrastructure as well. So if you look at bed tax benefiting the community, $300,000 going to local nonprofits for events and activities, the rodeo, the courthouse lighting, the museums, the centers, and then usually it's between 25 and 30 nonprofits that benefit from the Tourism Advisory Committee grant process. It's a grant-making process. They come, it's usually allocated to art fairs, to some of the museums doing special events. These grants are up to $5,000 each. They have to be for a local nonprofit for a local event happening in Prescott. And this year, I think we have about 24 successful applicants for the TAC grants. So this helps them market their event. What's in it for us is that they market it. We encourage them to market outside, so they kind of extend our marketing message. Hey, come to our car show, come to our art fair. So that's what the TAC grants are for. Another $350,000, and this number varies from year to year, but goes back to recreation services, capital projects, open space management, maintenance of the parking deck. Recently, actually, I think in this next budget year, we have dollars going to Lower Goldwater Lake improvements and to the Granite Creek Corridor. So I think we did Lower Goldwater last year, and I think we got the Granite Creek Corridor. So tourism dollars, tax dollars coming from people staying here, also going to support and improve the community for everyone to enjoy, not just visitors. Any questions about that? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mary Frederickson, you just mentioned the Granite Creek Corridor.
Yes.
And that's certainly a big plus as far as tourism goes. Are you guys involved with developing economically businesses that can track along the Granite Creek Corridor to both support the tourism, but
Sure.
also for the tax benefits that come from that?
Sure. So we don't directly support profitable businesses with dollars necessarily. We support the events. We do public improvements like this. And I would submit to you that Granite Creek Corridor is not going to be just for visitors, but for residents to enjoy as well. But there are not dollars that go directly to for-profit businesses. How we support them is meeting with them, helping them through city processes, permitting, things like that, making sure they have what they need, making sure that they're connected. But we don't grant dollars to for-profit businesses directly.
Before you move on,
Yes, sir.
in the earlier slide, you don't need to go back. You quoted 4 lakes.
Yes.
And I count 5. Which one am I?
So we have a debate internally about that, and I think it landed on 4. So, but I would go with 5 because I think Granite Basin Lake is often overlooked. So, but yeah, I was just at Granite Basin Lake. It's beautiful. So we'll put 5 on the next slide next time around. Thanks, Ted. Any other questions?
John, yes, I have a question. Terry Sapio. The Whiskey Off-Road is this weekend.
Yes, sir.
What kind of impact does something like that have?
Yeah, so that's great. So the Whiskey Off-Road, you've probably seen a lot of bikes around already. The hotels are filling up. Whiskey Off-Road, this will be the 18th Whiskey Off-Road mountain bike event. They missed 2 years, so really it's been 20 years since it's been coming to Prescott. They have over 2,300 riders, professional all the way down to beginners. And it's not just a mountain bike race, but it's a festival. They have music. It just becomes kind of a downtown festival and a draw. So it has a huge economic impact. They present back to us what their economic impact is. It's definitely been overall with all total spending and taxes and everything is over $2 million for the weekend. So it's a big hit. It's very important. Our businesses really appreciate having it, and we're going to continue, hopefully. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. So this is a little bit more of a deeper dive into how bed tax dollars have supported the community in the past. So just for everyone's awareness, I haven't mentioned it yet. So the bed tax is a 3% tax on every hotel room. So $3 for every $100 goes to the bed tax or the transient occupancy bed tax. That is collected by the state and then sent to the city to administer. So last fiscal year was a record year, actually. Prescott actually, during COVID, fared very well for visitation. People wanted to get out of the crowded cities. They wanted to come to the woods and get away. So our hotels, after the initial hit of the lockdowns and all that, our hotels started to do very well. We collected $1.6 million last year with that 3% tax. I think we're going to level off. It's leveling off and declining a little. I think they're estimating about $1.4 million this year. But that's the 3% tax. It's a dedicated fund, so it is state enabled and it can only be used for certain purposes, primarily marketing of the destination, but also some public improvements and things like that as well. So I'm going to focus on some of the community projects over the years that have been paid for by tourism dollars since 1990. The ongoing maintenance of the parking garage, some of it, and the cleanup and everything. Downtown kiosks, if you see those maps around the courthouse plaza, the courtesy can collection that's around Whiskey Row, downtown newspaper stands a couple of years ago. Overtime for some of the city staff, instead of it coming out of the general fund, some of it comes from the bed tax. Do you have a question?
Yeah, is that 3% statewide, or do we set our own rate locally?
Yes, we aren't able to set our own rate locally. It varies widely around the state. That's a good question. Pickleball court, we did restrooms at the new pickleball court a couple years ago with bed tax dollars. Constellation Trailhead restrooms, Watson Lake Park improvements, Granite Creek Park improvements. So you see there's just a whole list of things that we're using dollars that are coming from the outside. They're coming to the city, and we are dispersing them to make our community better, not just for visitors, but for ourselves as well. We think that's important.
I got a question.
Yes.
Isn't Granite Creek on federal land?
Granite Creek Park, the city park.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're thinking about Granite Basin Lake again. Yeah, I know. So any other questions about this? All right, working our way through here. So some updates for tourism. I mentioned that we did complete a strategic plan. We were able to leverage some state dollars on a 50% match and hire a consulting firm last year. Had a 4.5-day strategic planning process. Actually, I gave you the handout that came from that. I apologize for the small writing, but I'll just give you the 4 highlights that came from that. So areas of focus that came from strategic planning are grow and build sales and marketing infrastructure. Mike is here because we did not have a sales infrastructure. We didn't go out and sell rooms to groups. Mike's going to help us with that. So we are checking that box, number 1. So improve visitor access and experience. One of the things the committee really wanted to do is make people feel welcome here. If they have disabilities, if they've not been here before, one of the things that we implemented late last year was a colorblind accessibility program. For folks who are colorblind, they can go and borrow glasses from 7 locations around the city. There's an amazing number of people that are colorblind at some level, which I was not aware of. But these glasses help them see the full array of lights for Christmas, the sunsets, the leaf change. So that's been a very successful program, and we've gotten a lot of good press from that. So that's one way we can make Prescott more accessible. Sustain a healthy level of tourism. So I guess I'll just say that one of the things, just as we're mindful in economic development about what type of manufacturers we bring in, we are also mindful about the beautiful place that we have. And you know, there's a lot of horror stories with other destinations, and even in the state, about what they call over tourism, where we're just overrun with people and can't get around and all that. We're trying very hard to be careful about that. And you do that with marketing, you do that with targeting to certain groups to promote the town. So we're not just basically saying y'all come. We're being very targeted and careful about that, because we love Prescott too, and we want it to continue to have its charm and not be over visited. So that's been very important to the TAC and to our group. And then finally, enhancing the community and stakeholder engagement. So y'all are stakeholders. Citizens are stakeholders, not just hotels and restaurants. So us getting out, talking, having this dialogue is part of really what's in our strategic plan. And we hope to continue the conversation as we go through the through the process with this plan. So we just launched a new website, Experience Prescott. The colorblind accessibility, I mentioned that. Sales, media, and consumer missions. Tourism still does a lot of shows. After COVID, they started coming back. So we invite people from Canada to come visit us. There's a media mission there. My team went to Chicago to a consumer show in January. We have a Go West, Dallas consumer show. Kind of cool. 2 weeks ago, we had a tour of 7 journalists from Germany. International visitors here to see Prescott. They stayed for 2 days. They kayaked, they hiked, they enjoyed Whiskey Row. So what that does is these are all journalists that are going to go write stories about Prescott in Germany, invite them here. I won't go off on a tangent, but to say Germans really love the Old West. They very much do. And so this was we hope to get some really good write-ups from this FAM tour. And we hope to do more of that in the future as well. And then one of our metrics for success is what they call occupancy rate and average daily rate. So how much are we filling up the hotels? How much are the hotels getting per room? So we get reports on a weekly basis for occupancy rates. Like I said, they went up very high. We were very busy. As soon as they let us open back up, we were very busy during and after the pandemic. We are starting to level off. We're probably off about between 5% and 7% in occupancy from last year. But last year, it was just pent-up demand, everybody trying to get out. So we're leveling off. We're still above levels that we were before the pandemic. So we're pleased with that. But that's one of the metrics that we use to rate our success. Any questions about that? Yes, go ahead.
Jim McCarver.
Yes, sir.
The beds, what is included in that? Hotels, what other things do you use for measuring that?
Yeah, right. Oh, good question. So for the tax collection for the transient occupancy bed tax, it is hotels and Airbnbs. We've seen that trend increase in a lot of areas, and in Prescott's no exception. It's a little looser with Airbnbs because they're still not as regulated, but they have to go through most of the major websites, the Vrbo and all those do make them follow the local tax regulations. So the transient occupancy bed tax can only be collected for up to 30 days. So let's say you decide to come and you're working here for 3 months and you stay at one of the long-term places. After 30 days, we cannot collect the bed tax after that. So any long-term, any type of apartments or anything like that don't count. And camping is not counted either. So, any other questions? All right, this is the one page that you have in front of you. I won't bore you with the mission vision statement, but there's a lot of work done to get there. It gives us some good guiding principles and kind of gives us a roadmap for what we're going to do in the next few years. With the Tourism Advisory Committee, we report back every time we meet with them on achieving some of these goals and initiatives, and we're going to continue that. Also want to make you aware, another kind of quality of life thing. So during the pandemic, we did find National Forest, a lot of people camping on the National Forest. They were getting out, getting away from their house. And there was a lot of damage. There was a lot of trash. This wasn't just in Prescott. It was all over the state. So the state, they connected with an organization called Leave No Trace. which is based in Colorado. And Leave No Trace kind of counseled the state on messaging that we could create. So we call it Appreciate AZ. So this was just some messaging that we continue to this day about if you're going to go out, plan ahead and prepare, stick to trails, trash your trash, take it out with you, pack in and pack out, leave what you find, be careful with fire, respect wildlife, and share outdoors. So just trying to help our tourists and our visitors be more mindful of the area that they're using. So we really are proud of that campaign and working with the state on that as well.
John?
Yes, sir.
Gary Warrup, are you consistently able to track those people who use their credit cards and that at the kiosks when they come in to use the trails and that? And if so, what percentage or a percentage?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm probably, I know Joe's here. I won't put him on the spot, but I know that there is some tracking done with that. Yeah, the tracking that we do have a software system that can give us a pretty accurate how many people attended the weekend are going to be here for the Whiskey Off-Road. We have a way to track that. It combines credit card use and cell phone use. It's kind of a magic secret sauce formula that they give us, but it's pretty accurate. So, but we don't track specifically credit cards versus cash. So just last things, overlapping goals for community outreach, economic development, tourism, sustainability, prideful protection, happy and healthy communities, and impactful partnerships. So we've talked a little bit about that throughout this presentation today. There's our contact information. So I am open to questions. Andre? Or Deb? Yeah. Yes.
Going back, Deb Thalassides, going back to economic development.
Make sure it's green. Make sure the light's green.
It's flashing me.
Yeah, okay, that probably means it's dying. Don't touch the
Okay.
There you go.
Is this one working?
There you
Okay.
go.
So, didn't mean to break the mic. Sorry, guys. Back to economic development.
Yes.
And this is not to put you on the spot.
Sure.
I'm just curious because we're supposed to be looking at where the gaps are.
Yep.
Three-part question. Who's our biggest competitor?
Okay.
What's the biggest reason or top reasons that you hear for businesses not coming to
Okay.
Prescott?
Yep.
And by the same token, what do you hear for businesses who are here who leave?
Okay, good question. So biggest competitor is Phoenix. If someone's made the decision to come to Arizona, they're going to look there first. I'm going to speak plainly. Wages are higher. Cost of living is lower. So if a company is concerned about their workforce, they're going to look very closely at Phoenix. Plus, Phoenix will take the 1,000-employee manufacturer. We're limited in what we can take and can't take. Outside of Phoenix, the rest of Arizona, and then the Southwest. And Texas always seems to be in the conversation with people that are coming here and doing site selection. Utah is a big one. And depending on if it's aerospace, Seattle and Washington are always very competitive as well. There was a middle one. I know reason for leaving. There was one other one.
Reasons for leaving and
Yep.
reasons for not coming. Why do they say that?
Yeah, reasons for not coming. Generally, yeah, we definitely, especially in the last few years, the higher cost of living has really hurt us. When I first started, even 6 years ago, we had a lot of interest from California businesses that wanted to give their employees a place that they could come and enjoy, and they could afford a house where they couldn't afford one in San Diego. It's not so much anymore. So we definitely are hearing some concerns about that. Utility costs, building new utilities in Arizona is a little different than in some places. We love APS, but if they will not build a transformer. They want the company or the city to do that for them if they're going to expand. FedEx had no problem with it, but not every small company can handle that if they've got to do that. So utilities, cost of living are probably the two biggest objections that we're hearing right now.
And what about the ones that are here?
Yeah, well, luckily in terms of businesses that, I'm trying to think in non-retail. There's always turnover in retail, right? But for businesses that have picked up and left, I think we haven't heard a lot. We haven't heard a lot from them, but I think it's similar. It's cost of doing business at this point. And again, I'm not trying to disparage anyone, but we're definitely hearing some horror stories about contractors and construction, not just costs, but changing up work orders, price increases. Again, I think that's happening everywhere. I don't think that's just happening in Prescott, but those are things we're hearing. So I hope that helps.
John? John, Terry Sapio.
Yes, sir.
Along the same discussion, do you ever hear anything about regulatory environment, like there's too many regulations, or as that being seen as an obstacle?
No,
here
that's
in
from the
Prescott?
state level on down, that's always been a selling point for Arizona because of our next door neighbor. They've made it really easy for us to meet that bar. I haven't heard anything change in that regard. So it's a good question, though. Yes.
There's what I'll call a new lodging facility going on in downtown on Montezuma that consists entirely of RV trailers.
Yes.
Is that a bed tax dodge?
No, I think we're going to be able to collect that. It's going to be classified as a hotel. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, Andre Carmen.
Yes, sir.
There's a perception or a muttering among us younger people, I guess that's just me. Sorry, Ted.
Wow.
That Prescott loses a lot of retail, especially to Prescott Valley. What do you think is the cause of that?
I'll be honest with you. I think they're very different markets. Because of the tourism draw, because of the downtown, I don't see us losing retail. I mean, okay, I'm just going to go through a list, okay? You look at, what I see is expansions, second locations in Prescott Valley, right? Some of the restaurants, Rosa's going over there. Cal Ranch in Prescott Valley, that was a big one. A lot of people are like, why didn't we get that? Well, we already have a Cal Ranch. What they did is they took advantage of an adaptive reuse, a unique situation with the old Sam's Club, and we're able to put a warehouse facility. Would we have liked to have that? Absolutely. But, so what we're seeing is businesses coming here first and then maybe expanding there. But we also, I know in years prior to when I got here, we did lose a lot of national retailers. The mall was starting to sputter a little bit. So, Prescott Valley was very aggressive in their recruitment. But I do think it's different markets. The demographics are very different here, and I think that we can continue to attract quality retailers. And I mean, just in the few years that I've been here, I mean, the dining establishments, the cuisine has increased greatly, and I think you're going to see those types of higher end establishments in Prescott versus in Prescott Valley.
One more question. How do you balance the need for regional cooperation and economic development versus what's best for Prescott?
Oh, it's a great question. So when I started 6 years ago, there was an organization that was failing called GPREP. It was Greater Prescott Regional Economic Partnership. And it was a great idea. I just don't think it was well executed. The idea was that it was a regional, that the cities and the different municipalities each paid into it. I think the county paid into it as well. And the idea was to promote the region. And it's a good idea because someone coming from out of state to start a business, they don't know the boundary between Prescott or Prescott Valley. They look at us as a region. So GPREP failed, and that's okay. But what we're doing at the staff level and through the State Economic Development Association is we are working together very closely with my counterpart in Chino Valley, Prescott Valley. We meet on a regular basis. I heard the term frenemy. So we work together and we promote the region, but at some point then, yeah, we're competing for that business. But we'd rather showcase the entire region, let them fall in love with the place, and let the chips fall where they may. So I think that's the best approach. The successful approaches around the state where they've had success in attracting business have been more regional. We can't just say, oh, we're only going to talk about Prescott. It's for site selectors, for people that are in business, they need to look at the entire region. So we're willing to work together to do that. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your time today. And feel free to follow up. You have my contact information. Happy to help with anything that you have. And good luck. You guys have a very admirable and daunting task ahead of you. So thank you for your work.
Before you leave, just in case the public has any questions, is there anyone from the public who has like to comment or have any questions? You're off the hook.
It was easy. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, John. And I do have a copy of this presentation. If you guys want, I can email it out to you so you have it for your reference. And we will also be putting it on our website. So next we have a roundtable discussion about process and moving forward. So I will hand this off to Chelsea.
Hi, everyone. All right, we're going to get our poster boards set up, but in the packet for this meeting, the committee members were provided a couple of sheets with questions, and this is kind of going to be a very interactive, that's the point of this work session. We're going to discuss the 4 questions, and I do hope you had time to mull over them and kind of come up with some thoughts that you can share with the group. And I do apologize for the audience. These are going to be situated here for the cameras, so we're still working on room configuration. But for the committee members, like I said, this is going to be interactive and a platform to really facilitate dialogue between you as members with staff and really just have a focused conversation on what we need to do moving forward. So let's kick it off with the first question. Sorry, that was mine, Gary. If you don't mind, I'm just going to leave it right there. So the first question that we posed to the group, and Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, for this item of the agenda, if we could have kind of a free flow of thought and maybe parliamentary procedure, just set it on the table for a minute.
We'll suspend it.
Okay, thank you, sir. So for the committee members, again, microphones are very important, but we want to hear from you as it relates to the first question, which is, what does collaboration, especially in this general plan process, mean to you? And the expectation is that I'm going to go around if we don't have any volunteers, and I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts on this as we move forward. So, Mr. Chair?
Yeah. We have anyone with any input there? Question 1. Gary?
Well, coming from the last general plan, where we had one element that was really collaborative, we met with Joe Baines, Chris Hosking. There were 32 maybe at a time, some even coming from out of town. And we followed a formula, do what with what and how well, but also had to show hope, planning, and collaboration. Those are the formulas I've always used successfully. So what I was missing then was the consensus, which I'm feeling right now, is that we're bringing the community into us, which I'm really, the presentation we just had, we never had anything like that. So collaboration means that we extend from ourselves into the community and vice versa.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that thought.
Sir James?
I think from my standpoint, it's just a little early to come up with any hard and fast rules. I think with my efforts to engage the community and the people that I come in contact with, it's a real challenge to have them take the time to think about it and respond and give me some positive feedback on some of the questions that I pose to them.
Yeah.
So I think that's something we need to continue to make a big push to do that.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate those comments because we are I know the committee formed, was it 8 months ago, 9 months ago? So we are at the educational phase of the process. You know, we've put out one survey. I believe there will be more surveys. Staff, I believe we'll be talking about the upcoming open house in June. So there will be more time to nail that down as far as the public engagement side. But in a broad way, collaboration as it relates to just kind of functioning as a well-oiled machine and making sure that we have opportunity to free flow ideas to make this process successful, because the idea is the plan is the goal. You know, it's not the staff or the committee, but it's the outcome of the plan that's the most important. So I appreciate the fact that that you mentioned, you know, we have time and we aren't quite there yet as defined, but we're getting there, and I think this is a good start to that process.
One second, Gary. I wanted to elaborate a little bit on what Jim said, because to promote the general plan, I've been on KYCA, I've been on KQNA. But if we, and Ralph has touched on this a little bit with the charter, I don't think that we can get in front of the community enough. Because if you look at past general plans, you have a general plan, and us or our predecessors worked years to put it together, and then the city votes on it, and then we have something that comes up later, and seems like people forgot about the general plan, and they do what's important at the time. So I think that's an important part, Jim, and I think we need to build in a communication process with the residents, the community, the city, so that's a little more top of mind with them than it may have been in previous plans. Gary, you had a comment?
Yes. Actually, it's a question. We provided a venue this past Saturday where thousands of people showed up, Earth Day. Rod was co-chair. And my question for feedback from that, how did it feel with the public right in your face? And were they wanting to be involved? And is that something that we could supply more of in some fashion?
Sure. We had a lot of people come by. We were giving out information. We were listening to people. We had people giving us comments there. We did try to, 3 people, Mary and Dawn and Jim were all there, and they walked around with clipboards with some questions to try to get input. It was very hard to do that. It's hard to get people to stop to answer questions, but we did see a little spike in some people subscribing to the website, which we're promoting, and then we did have a few people over the weekend also do the survey. We will be also at the home show. That's a huge event for 3 days, and we're going to be getting a whole lot of information. We also got ideas on how to get the website out a little bit better. So we're going to keep building on that. So the home show will be another test to see how we do, and then we'll have the big open house on a Saturday from 10 to 2. So we're going to be working with John Heine about doing a PSA for that, and Cindy Barks. We already talked to her this morning about doing an article in the paper for that. So we're going to have a big push for that, and we'll be discussing at the next meeting our plans for that.
All right, let's go around the table. Deb, you have input?
When have you known me to be quiet? Okay, so a couple of really specific things. The committee as a whole is not involved in the agenda setting process for the prospective meeting. Maybe that is starting to work its way out, but for the last 9 months, it's been an issue. There was no collaboration on creating the questions. So hopefully if there's going to be another round of questions, we can collaborate with staff on that, because we all have different constituencies that we talk to, and coming up with some broad categories for questions and then drilling down to the appropriate questions, it'd be great to be involved in that. One of the things that I think we started a conversation early on, and maybe this could be a regular agenda item, is we've not talked as a group about what's missing from the 2015 plan, what's changed in the community, what are the interests of members. I know Gary's always come back to the recreation interests that he has, but I don't think I have any idea what anybody else is interested in. And then the last thing, you were just talking about the different public engagement that's going to be occurring. We've not had that plan presented to us. We've not given you feedback on that. So the collaboration is this kind of back and forth between staff and the committee. I think we're a resource to you, and we can expand, or you can tell us, no, that's really crazy and stupid, but we get to at least give our input.
Yeah, and I greatly appreciate those comments, Deb, and I love the specificity too, because that helps us be able to be more responsive. And as it relates to the upcoming scheduled items for the May home show at the Prescott Valley, is it Finley now? Is it Event Center? Is it Tim's? No, it's Finley. That will be we will provide the committee more information as it relates to what that is, but the June open house is going to be something that we come to you with input on. I believe Tammy has prepared information for thoughts and ways to roll that out, and she's going to be emailing the committee with that presentation material and asking for feedback on that. Now, as it relates to what happens in the future, we would love to hear your thoughts on that, and perhaps at the next meeting we can talk specifically about public outreach, because going back to what the chair Ted mentioned, you know, public outreach is wonderful when it's planned events, but you can't do that very often. I love what you mentioned about the radio. I love what you mentioned, Deb, about your circles. I mean, with an 11-member committee, you have very, very different circles, and it would be great to have resources in your hand to be able to speak to the people in your circle about those things. So I'd love to consider putting something on the next agenda to talk about specifically that, as well as upcoming events on the calendar. And I think we have that. So wonderful. Thank you.
Terry, do you have any input?
Sure. My input on the collaboration area, the input from the public, is that half the population of Prescott is over the age of 59. And the retirees in Prescott have lots of time to give us lots of input. The people that I think we have to make an effort to hear more from, and I appreciate Andre representing the younger generation on the committee, is that we need more input from younger people in the city of Prescott. I mean, half of the population is under the age of 59. And they lead very, very busy lives. They shuttle kids to sports and school and other activities and such, and they're the people that it's difficult to get input from. And I'd like to hear more from the younger people in the city of Prescott that are raising families and paying bills and mortgages, and they're working to make a living and a life here in Prescott, and how can we help them and make a better life for themselves and their families here in Prescott?
Great input. Thank you.
I'll just keep going in this direction. A few inputs that I have. First of all, we have a plethora of civic organizations in this city that are always looking for speakers. I know because I belong to one of them, and I have spoke at a couple of them. So we could kind of network out. I belong to the Rotary. Andre may belong to some young group.
You're not getting past that one, Andre.
But all of us belong to some group where we could get the message out. And what I would like to discuss at the next meeting is who belongs to what and when can they get on the agenda? Because they're always looking for speakers.
I've already getting calls, and I'm already getting put on agendas.
Wonderful.
I'm already getting them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, And it kind of goes back to what Deb mentioned, I think at the last meeting, the outreach to HOAs too, because we do have a lot of organized homeowners associations. I used to be a manager for HomeCo, and I know that it would be relatively easy to contact, one source at a management company and be able to speak at each of those things. So I think that's a wonderful next agenda item. Maybe it would fit well under the public outreach discussion, where we can come up with an idea of who belongs to what organization and figure out a template, if you will, a template of presentation.
We can work out a template, but I like to see the members engaged.
Absolutely.
If Gary belongs to some organization, I like him to speak to that organization. Now, as far as collaboration, I think the other thing I'd like to discuss is a collaboration between we on the general plan, the people on the charter. Ralph made an effort on that behalf. People on P&Z and people on city council, because now Don and I at least represent P&Z, but there's a lot of things that we've learned in past that the general plan has worked on. And it may have got connected with P&Z and may not. It may have got connected with the city council and it may have not. There may be some elements of what we do to bring some specificity and some accountability to the process, so that there's a touchstone. Whatever the general plan is and the P&Z is looking at or city council is looking at, there's a touchstone back to that. And it's not just, let's do this. The specificity may mean, let's do this way. So you got something a little more tangible. The resident outreach, I think we've discussed that, and we also might consider reaching out to the surrounding communities. When we talk about stakeholders, I remember making a speech at one of the AVO meetings. And I said, the stakeholders are not just the people that live around the airport. Stakeholder could be a guy that travels down from Chino and works at the airport. Or we reach as far as Anthem. People from Anthem use the Prescott Airport rather than Sky Harbor. They could be. Now, I'm not saying we reached Anthem, but the point is there may be some things that we're working on that we might want to outreach to Chino or Prescott Valley, so they're part of the loop.
Great
Andre?
thoughts on collaboration.
I don't think I have anything to add at this point in time, so I might come back to it.
There's been a lot of discussion about collaboration as far as reaching out to the public, getting their input. Tammy's done an amazing job. I don't mean to smooch on you, but with the website and the surveys and all that. I guess since I wasn't here for the 2015 plan and how that was developed, I don't have any of the historical knowledge to say, oh, well, we did things this way then. We don't want to do that now. We want to do something different. But I guess and we may not be here at that point yet, but my thought is that we need to have collaboration staff to committee as far as when the time comes to actually put rubber to the road and elements get written up or at least drafted for eventual, massaging until it gets to the point that it can be added in. I'd like to see collaboration with that, as far as not saying, well, here's the element we've written up. Thanks a lot. It'd be nice that we would be able to provide input to the staff, because you guys are going to be writing the thing. But I'd like to see collaboration on our end to give input.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Mary. And that's exactly what will happen at the writing phase. I know Tammy right now is working hard on going ahead and drafting it, getting it into a format that can be added to. And then once each of the elements, are we going to take it element by element?
Yeah, so in the background, right now, I'm working with the other departments, and we're looking at the existing elements and what potential new elements too. And we're seeing what needs to be expanded on. There's a lot of changes from 2015 to now that are more issues. Water quality is a huge one right now. Green infrastructure and things that were not really mentioned or there was a little paragraph. I mean, when you guys heard about from fire, there's a lot going on with fire department right now and a lot of concerns, and it was like a half a page. So we are looking at that, and there was a lot of technical information that was in the plan that may not need to be in there, or we can reference websites. We hope to make this more of a digital type format, so we can reference a lot of websites and make links to it. So we could take out a lot of that information that it's not very pertinent to make it a usable document. We want to make this very user-friendly, usable for staff and make it realistic too, because we want to make sure that whatever's the goals are that are in the plan, they're achievable. We don't want to put something in there that we know we can't do in the next 10 years. I mean, that's just unreasonable. But we also know that all of our departments have been doing strategic plans, so they have an idea of what their challenges are, what the opportunities are, and what their goals are. So that's what we're bringing forward to you so you can hear it, and we can try to move that into the plan. As we get the elements updated, then we're going to bring it to you, and you guys get to redline it to death, tweak it, say, we need to add this, and we're going to be asking for your input. First is going to be cities, like from us, from staff, who will use the plan, what we think, and then we're going to bring it to you and get your opinion, and then later on the public output. So, and through the whole process, we will be putting the updated elements on the website and asking for public input as we're moving along too, and you will see all that.
Thank you. And I do think it's important, like Deb brought up about the number of elements and if there are any additional, that we probably have that conversation earlier on in case there's some research we need to do and input we need to provide. Is there any other thoughts on collaboration, Mary?
No, I know I was jumping way ahead in the process.
That's okay.
But-
This is planning.
Yes, but better to have the thought out there now than if it was not going to be your guys' process to provide draft elements to us that we could add into.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
Ralph, you have some input?
Yeah, Ralph Hess. When I'm thinking of collaboration, what was just described is what is done among staff. It's a situation where you talk with all the various departments, and then all the input is taken in. Each of those departments participate in the decision-making process of what your final product's going to be. And what I would suggest is that add the element of the committee to that collaborative effort, because what we've seen, to build on what Deb was saying, is a number of things in which I would have expected the committee to be involved, such as the survey that was put out, the organization of the Earth Day event, the organization of the home improvement or whatever this things that's going to be over at Finley. Part of that decision-making process is, or making the decisions, should be a collaborative effort that includes the committee when it involves the general plan. And so I commend you for what you're suggesting with regard to getting committee input. I just think it could be done at the outset and to be done earlier so that the committee is involved in that decision-making process and making those decisions.
Okay, clarifying question. So the home show is not an event that's put on by the city. We just get a booth. We get a booth every year, and this year we decided to relinquish the community development realm of the table that we get and use it to promote the general plan. Now, would that be something we're kind of letting the committee know that we're doing that? Are you suggesting that we need to I guess I'm unclear as to when it comes to events of that nature that we're already pre-scheduled to do. Is that something we, other than letting you know that we're doing that, how would you collaborate with me on and Tammy on seeing that happen?
Okay, for instance, I could use the Earth Day thing. Okay. And you can maybe compare it to what you're talking about with home show. Don and Rod?
Jim and
Jim. We're involved with that. But if we had discussed that on one of our agendas, we did?
Yeah, I can confirm that. We did talk about that because I was down there.
That it was occurring, but we didn't discuss it.
For instance, let me expand that a little bit. We could have talked about who wants to take the time from 9 to 11. Who wants to take the time from 11 to 1? What is it that we really want to present from the committee when we're in the booth?
Okay.
I don't remember having a discussion like that. And so, and if you're saying we did, well, then, you know,
I
I'm
don't
not as-
think the discussion got to those details.
No,
Yes.
what I remember is you told us that you had a booth at Earth Day, and you welcomed us to come down. I came down, Jim, Don, Mary came down, and they went around with clipboards. I think Ralph has a point that it goes back to my favorite word, specificity, that we come up with a collaborative plan that says from 9 to 10 you're going to do this, and from 10 to 11 you're going to do this. And that's part of the growing pain process that we're going through.
Sure. So, and I can appreciate that. I know that Tammy had sent an email requesting attendance and whatnot, but greater specificity, I can appreciate that, and we can work toward that as far as, you know, what the message is going to be and how we roll that out.
And to apply it to the home show, the same type of thing is what what are we going to be presenting? Since the general plan is going to be a topic that's going to be presented at the booth at the home show, I think it might be helpful to have the committee discuss, well, okay, so what are we going to do with that regard? What are we going to present? Who would want to be presenting what?
Right.
That type of thing, so that
Gotcha.
the committee is involved in I'm going back to this, the committee is involved with the decision making.
Sure.
I mean, it's evident on our agendas, the committee hasn't been involved with the decisions on what goes on the agenda. And I understand we're in the education phase. Okay, so it has to be set up for scheduling for who can make the presentation at what time, so that we can all be educated. But my suggestion would be that to collaborate the committee, and especially if you apply Robert's Rules of Order, the committees set their own agendas. And so it would be helpful for the committee to be setting its agendas. So.
Okay.
And collaboration with the staff. I mean, we need to have staff present the information for us to decide what we're going to be having for committees. So, but there has to be a decision making. The committee members have to be involved with the decision making, and it can't be just staff making those decisions for the committee.
Sure. So what I'm hearing you say is greater input on how the plan is publicized, what outreach looks like, and what is discussed at the committee. And it goes back to the agenda. I think we put that under agenda setting process and creating questions.
It's not just input, it's decision making.
Right. For a collaborative decision to be made, there has to be input by both parties, and staff would likely begin the conversation with, hey, what do you think about this? But in the agenda setting, that's also opportunity for the committee to say, hey, what do we think about this?
Right. Actually, I think at different times the initial input's going to come from a number of sources, whether
Sure.
it comes from staff or from a committee member. But yes, I think collaboration, as I view it, would be everybody's input is given weight, everyone has an opinion and has support for that opinion and needs to be considered, and then the decision is made collaboratively. So,
Can I say something?
Jim has some input.
I see that a little differently. I think there's a risk of us as a committee trying to micromanage too much. And I mean, you have certainly we should have input. I see that those two events coming up, the home show in May and the open house in June, is totally different from our standpoint as far as our role. I think at the home show, it's an informational thing, and we're not going to have any formal. I don't see as a committee member having a formal presentation there. There to ask questions, maybe have clipboards and canvas people. I think at the open house it's a different event, and I think the committee should have a lot of input in that, and maybe a lot of responsibilities and obligations for us too. But I don't want to personally get in a position of making you feel like every move you make, you have to clear it with the committee. I don't see that as our job, to micromanage.
I don't think Ralph was saying that.
This is Ralph Hess again. Yeah, again, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We don't need to micromanage. Everybody's got their own role. And one thing that might be helpful is I don't know that we've actually defined each role clearly. And we've been at this for, 9 months? And it's still unclear as to what each role is. So, but I agree with you, Jim.
All right, let's move on to Jim Huffman.
Okay, a couple comments. First, Deb, with regard to HomeCo and places like that, a couple months ago I reached out to them. They had no problem sending out an email for Prescott Lakes, all of HomeCo, so it's pretty easy to do. The same sort of thing perhaps can be done. I'm not exactly sure how, but with, Prescott High School, Yavapai College, whatever it is. I'm not sure exactly how you do that, how you reach all those younger generation folks, but there's got to be some way to do it. And, maybe
Get Andre to do it.
Get Andre to do it. No, seriously. I mean, especially at the high school level. I mean, these are the guys that may be around. So what can we do to reach out to those guys? Maybe you've got ideas.
A city councilor who's a former history we have a city council member, and I think that he brought this up, who's going to be the superintendent of schools. You could get the government classes engaged. So I think the value of us talking isn't to micromanage staff. It's to start to float ideas up. Staff are the subject matter experts on this. We're not challenging you guys on that. But we've got ideas here that might take off. And I specifically remember Clark Tenney mentioning some ways to outreach. So that's something that a couple of us could maybe work on and take some of the load off of you guys.
Right, and then there's all sorts of, each of us are on different, like what Ted said, be it whatever. I'm a member of several community things, and I've reached out to each one of those, and some of them say yes, and they send it out, and some don't. But yeah, I think reaching the younger generation, including students, is really important. Another thing, this is a little vague, but we have a number of different sections. If you go to the table of contents, you've got all sorts of things that are cross a lot of different lines. For example, one that's near and dear to me is the airport. And if you were to go and look at how many times the word airport appears in the 2015 general plan, it's like 130 times. Tax shows up maybe 70 times. So that tells me it's pretty important. And what I would also emphasize, not just going out to the community, but also engaging people at key levels, like the airport director, and find out, hey, what's important to you? what do you think should be in the general plan and where? Land development, things like that. So,
Okay. Yeah, and we will have a presentation by the airport
Sure.
to provide feedback on that. But
Okay.
you're talking specifically asking them those questions.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
So, yeah. However you want to do it, what is important to the airport, whoever you talk to. But, it would be Robin Sabata, but. I have her on our committee. Got it.
Right.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim.
Sir Don?
One of the things that I think we need to approach this with is an open mind. Now, myself, when I became part of the committee, I had certain ideas that I wanted to see brought forth and certain things that didn't rank that high with me. When we're out with the public, we need to understand what do they think and why do they think this. Not just, what do you think ought to be in the plan? Okay, I'll write that down. But why do you think you need to have this in the plan? Or if they agree with you, why do you agree with me? Or why do you disagree with my ideas? So I think having the open mind and having our future discussions there, to me, is important for me.
All right.
And I think that gets back to my favorite word, specificity.
Wonderful. All right. Mr. Moyer.
Is that your favorite word of the day, Ted? We've talked about collaboration between and among the staff and the public and the committee, but I think eventually I'd like to see us get down to collaboration among subgroups of the committee. And I don't mean to make Joe nervous about this. I know we can't have a subgroup that's a quorum of the committee, but I'm talking about something much smaller than that, to work on our special interests of some of us that we have in common, like recreation and whatever it might be. And we could work to bring an outline to the full committee as to what we'd like to see discussed and eventually part of the plan.
So, and this might be a legal question, but it's my understanding that subcommittees also have to be kind of formalized with an agenda and all of that. Is that, it doesn't sound like that's what you're wanting.
No, I'm not talking about a formal subcommittee or any subcommittee that would be include a quorum of the committee.
Gotcha.
I'm talking about something much smaller.
Just shared passions about a common general plan element.
Yeah, and it would eventually see the light of day in a public meeting when that small group brings it to the full committee.
So we run into open meeting law issues, and I don't know, does it have to be, is it a quorum that constitutes the open meeting law issue?
Yeah, usually it is a quorum. I'm Chris Rosaire, Assistant City Attorney. Joe is not able to make it today, but there may be other issues other than just open meeting law with a small quorum like that, and depending on who you're sharing that information and when you're sharing it with. But we can look into something similar to that, see if it's a possibility. So I'm not going to say no now, but yeah, we can look into that.
You know, I'm thinking, Rod, there's some possible synergy here. We have the constraint of the open meeting law and having to notice it, and there's nobody suggesting that we go against that. But we also had recommendations about input to agenda. So we're going through the process now where Tammy is working hard and she sends out meeting agenda, and then we come here to discuss that agenda. What we might do is have a notice. I'm putting together agenda, and I'm giving you a week to identify agenda items so that we can discuss it at the meeting. So we're not violating open meeting law. The public is part of the discussion, and members of the committee have a week to bring up what topics they need to be on needs to be on the next agenda.
Right. Oh, okay. So, so the intent behind the last agenda item, that is, I guess, what is going to be upcoming, and that is when we can do input right at the
That's what we've been asking for input.
at the time of the meeting. But what I hear you say, Ted, is that maybe people need a little bit more time to think about it, or
Yeah, just look at the process. The process is next meeting, we're going to talk about open space and trails. That's on the agenda.
for the presentation, right?
Right,
And then
okay.
planning the
So
open
we've had a
house.
discussion about a number of topics here, many of which are, burning platform issues. So what I'm suggesting is before we publish the agenda, that we say we're going to publish the agenda May 15th. And on May 8th or 9th or 10th, however it works out with the work days or the work days versus weekends, say, all right, agenda items are welcome. I'm going to publish the agenda on the 15th. So ask people what they want to talk about in the upcoming meeting, in addition to what we're going to hear.
So would it be possible if we discuss kind of what we're doing now on the agenda, if we take time on agenda F, or on the item F on today's agenda, if we go ahead and do that so that staff has time to pull together information over the next few weeks, if we need to reach out to other departments. Some of these items and some of the burning platform issues that you mentioned will take a little bit of time and coordination. I think it would be a good opportunity to discuss each of the agenda items at the end of each session.
That's why they're on the agenda.
Right, and I think that was just not clear. Maybe it was just a perception of this is what we're doing rather than, hey, is this what you want to talk about? I know there's a tight presentation schedule, just because the presenters need advance notice for preparing their information, but that's just the presentation. The other items, they can be added to or changed. I think that would, what do you think about that, Ted?
I'm not sure I understood what you just suggested, but what I'm suggesting is we can stay to our schedule of the presentations like open space and trails, because they're on a schedule and we need to accommodate that schedule. I'm just saying you got a lot of items that we've discussed here today that need more discussion.
Sure.
And I think a lot of the committee members are saying we got some ideas on what's important and how to do this. So we ought to have an opportunity at each meeting, and I know we need to agenda. If we're going to talk about it, it has to be on an agenda so you can notice the public. So let's set aside, like we're doing today, let's set aside a segment of the meeting for committee members to propose agenda items. Now, there's 11 committee members, and we can't do 11 items at the next meeting. So
I don't know. We're ready for it if you are. I'm just kidding.
Gary, you had a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about roles, and especially bringing up next meeting's agenda. I see my role in the general plan is to follow my passion as it relates to the general plan in the community. For instance, the last general plan, I was the only one who went out and formed a committee, which I'm told was in violation, and I couldn't care less. It was extremely successful. A 10-year plan was formed. It was adopted. There was no one else at those meetings from the general plan, so I don't know what I violated. But for the next meeting, I've already been out culling the field, and I've asked that 3 people representing the future of mountain biking, making this one of the best mountain biking communities in Arizona, be able to do a presentation. I thought that was my role as being a committee member. I have another passion, And it comes in the form of a question. If Prescott is such a great place to live, is it a great place to die? And I'm meaning by that, and we talked about this earlier, what is our medical in this community? It's falling apart. So my passion went to my doctor, and I sat with her, and she informed me she's extremely concerned because we're all old except for Andre. And she's not finding any support for family practice. She emailed or wrote to the mayor's office, got no response. So she's extremely frustrated, and I said, let me help with that frustration, because I certainly want a good medical program here. So I want that introduced to the general plan. And I would be happy. She's already found a couple doctors who are willing to sit with me and not get worried about being fired, and talk about what is the role in Prescott for medical, and how do we make it better or make it aware to the public. So my role has expanded to two things. How many other people here have a role or a passion that they would like to express in the general plan? I love when Deb talks about her passion, because you're so definitive, and I won't use your word because I can't pronounce it.
Thanks for those comments, Gary. Yeah.
But, okay, so I'm almost done, but I think that none of us have polled ourselves for what's your passion? Why are you here, and what do you really want to contribute, and how do you make that work without violating the stupid laws?
Well, thank you for those comments, Gary. And I agree. People produce really good content when they're following their passions. And I think it's important that each of you connect with your passions in the plan, because a city plan is made for people. It's made for organizing a city to work for people. So really good conversations. We're at 3:30 right now. I know we have.
I'm going to make a comment. We just got through the first question.
We did.
You have 4.
I
on
understand.
There. So what I'm going to suggest in spirit of getting through the agenda is that I would like to assign every committee member not to come up with a blank page, but to have answers for questions 2, 3, and 4 for the next meeting, and also ask volunteers to provide input on some of these issues. Like, how do you construct the agenda? How do you get to the younger groups of people? And I'd like to ask every member of the committee to volunteer what social, civic organizations you belong to where you could be recruited as a disciple for outreach. So,
a general plan disciple.
Yeah, so do everybody get that? So you guys, you all, and I shouldn't say guys, you all should have assignment to finish questions 2, 3, and 4, and come up with the civic organizations you belong to that we could tap your ability to outreach. Deb has a question.
I'd like to, I don't know if this is the right place, but I do think I'd like to see if the legal department could come back with how do we get to yes, it's not a word lawyers use, it's always no, on how we can do things in smaller groups. 11 is a ridiculous number to try to manage. We all can't have the same passion. How can we, I want to know how we can do something legally if we want to get together in smaller groups to have some conversations.
All right. Well, we will definitely ask, and Mr. Chris here is going to take that back, I think, for legal.
But we're not going to settle that today, because I want to get.
Right. It's going to be something that is for a future agenda. Right. So we'll get to. Item F on this agenda is where we'll kind of settle what y'all want to see on the next meeting. But Mr. Chair, I don't know if you'd like, we have a couple more comments, I think.
That's one way to limit the comments is.
This is Ralph Hess. It sounds like you're winding down the meeting, and before we do that, I would ask that we invite any members of the public.
I'm going to go through the agenda. That's what I want to get to.
Okay. That's all I had.
Because we just quasi-finished agenda item C, correct? So let's go to agenda item D.
Mr. Chair. Ralph Hess again. No, when I was making the comment, I thought the public might want to make some comments on item C. So the collaboration and the
Public comment comes into E.
no public comment, general public comment. But we invited. Don't we invite public comment on each of these agendas?
Yes, yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We've already told everybody that after each agenda, I mean, this is a public meeting.
Right.
So after each agenda item, we do open it up for public for any public comment.
So Ralph Hess again is I'm just asking that we invite. There might not be any, but if the public want to comment on the collaboration process suggestions, that now would be the time I think they could do that.
We have a number of people from the public. Does anyone have any comments with regards to the discussion we just had on collaboration?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Sandy Studi, 4976 Cactus Place. Talk to the microphone. Talk to the hand. Responding a little bit to what Deb was saying and to what Ted was saying, one of the steps that I think is missing for me is that while I've read the general plan several times, I'm not exactly sure that I know what the elements are that need to be updated, need to be considered to be added if they're missing at this point. So when you talk about having committee members take a leadership role in a specific area that they have a passion for, how does that blend, dovetail with the requirements for the plan update that needs to occur? So does there need to be a timeout and maybe a reordering of the education process in terms of what's missing in the plan, what need, I can't articulate it really well, but if you're going to ask for fresh ideas or maybe things that have changed in the community, how can you be sure if you don't know what's already in the 2015 plan not being addressed, or if it's just an update, or if it's something new that needs to come to this body to be considered? And then the other thing is, no, that's all I need to say.
Well, I'd like to address that before you walk away. I think the mayor at the first meeting asked how many people have read the 2015 general plan, and most hands went up. So there is a knowledge base there. I think what we're hearing from the members is a call for collaboration between the committee and the city staff. The state has a rule that we have to come up with a general plan, and we're going to comply with the state rule. That has certain elements, and staff has already pursued that part. Our effort is to say not only is there more to it than that, but also how can we write it in such a way that it provides a blueprint, not a vision and mission, but a vision and mission and a tactical plan for the boards, commissions, and committees that follow us on how that represents the city of Prescott and how we could implement it.
Now I remember what I was going to say. I have a passion that doesn't exist in the general plan as I remember it. Admittedly, I haven't looked at it for 6 months. How do I, as a citizen, bring that passion to you as a committee or an individual committee member so that my voice, and I have a circle of friends who have this same passion. So what is the process for the community to bring input at this point?
So you are on my email list, correct? Okay. So as we send items out, agenda items, if you see something that you're in your group, and we'll probably give you a heads up, because we do try to put it on the agenda the month advance. This is kind of the presentations that are coming, because I have those scheduled out to November. So, and that very kind of, some of them are kind of technical, a lot of information. It'll be a lot of discussion with those, what we're planning. So you're transit, correct? In fine arts, okay. Fine. I didn't know the fine arts. Okay, that's a new one. So we don't have that. Let me write that down so I'll remember. Fine arts. So as we start moving forward, if that's a discussion and you have a group of people that want to come and talk about it to the committee, let me know well in advance, and we will get it on an agenda.
I was just following Gary's model of reaching out to
Yep.
a circle, and he has status in this organization to bring that back to the process.
Sure.
I don't.
And you can filter through me. Let me know what groups you want to bring or what you want to discuss, and we will agendize it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else from the public about this agenda item? Okay. So next is it was staff update. Okay.
I think we're at D, staff update.
Staff update. Okay. So a little, like, how many of you have ever been to the home show in Prescott Valley? You walk around, you get a lot of information, you grab a lot of swag. It's all about the swag, right? And information. So what we kind of learned at Earth Day, it was very a learning experience. People just want to give their comments really quick, kind of talk a little bit, and then move on. They grab what's easy to grab. We were giving away bookmarks with little flower pods, mostly to the kids. Kids loved them. But people were like, wow, these are really cool. And we have a lot more stuff for the home show that we've already ordered. We have stress ball, because I worked with the tourism department. What do people like? I reached out to the experts. What goes, what do people grab? So we got the big clips, we got stress balls, we got pens, and we got the bookmarks. So we anticipate a lot of that to go at the home show, and it all has the website on it for the planprescott.com. That was the key. We wanted to get that website. We have the flyers, we have them in back. You're welcome to take them. I can email them to you to circulate, to send out to your email groups, or whatever. We do have some PSAs that are coming out. I'm going to be working with John Heine to do that, to get out on the radio. If anyone has a really good radio voice that wants to do it, get with me, because I don't, and I don't want my picture out there. So, George insists someone get my picture. I'm going to fight this. But we are reaching out. The big event is going to be the open house, and that's really where we're going to need your guys' help and to participate. We have a schedule for June 17th at the Rowley Adult Center on Rosser Street from 10 to 2. We've all participated in different outreach meetings over the last few years. The open house model works the best, where people can come at any time, and then they can float around to the different departments and tables and get information, ask questions, and get information. We're going to be asking you at the next. We have ideas just from experience and looking what Chino Valley did, what Prescott Valley did for their open houses, the kind of questions and stuff. We have maps being made right now by our RT department. I met with them because I need them for the general plan, but also for these the meetings, so we can get some ideas. But we're going to discuss it at the next meeting. We're going to show you everything. We're going to discuss what we're hoping to get out of each discussion in each table. And we want your input, and that way we have time to change things or add things or create more. Go ahead.
Tammy, I like the idea that we have the website and all the handouts. Do we have something to go with the handout saying go to the website and take the quiz?
The flyers on the back, they have the QR code on it that takes you straight to the survey, and it also has the website and the email address on it. Okay. We also had other groups, tables, Klimas has done a lot of outreach, has been pushing our website out to get people involved. Every time he does, I get a whole bunch of subscribers. So,
Tammy, to Don's point and to Gary's point and mine, maybe you could give us a one-page bullet point of upcoming dates and things that are happening. In addition, so I've used that flyer when I was on KYCA and KQNA, and as we get people who know organizations, just a one-page set of bullet points of things to use and dates of things coming up. So if we go on the radio or we go talk to the Lions or the whatever social organization, we all have our own personality or presentation style, but we have certain number of bullet points that we all agree we ought to cover.
Yes, I can send you the, we did a press release, so I can send that to you that has a lot of those points and stuff in it.
Great.
But then, yeah, we have the open house, so we're going to ask for your guys' input and suggestions, or if we're missing something. That way we have enough time to get everything together, because we don't want to be scrambling the Friday before to get everything together. So that gives us plenty of time to work with IT and to update our maps or the other information boards we have. But we will give that to you. So just so you know about the agenda, we're having to use the same format as the council agendas, so everything's very uniform, which we like as staff, we like uniform. But we have to have our information into that agenda 2 weeks in advance. So right after this meeting tomorrow, I start thinking about the next meeting, and I start getting information together. So that's why on the agenda we had to put that on there. And I apologize. I guess we haven't re-upped that when we originally put that plan for next meeting, that we were asking for your input. We are going to be a little, open space and trails. I'm sure that's going to be a big discussion. Usually it is. That's a very hot topic. And then the open space, the open house discussion. But if there's something else we want to put in there, ability to meet in small groups, I'll get with legal and see if that's something we can add and what information, and with the city clerk's office, because that coordinates with the city clerk's office and with the attorney's office. So I'll have to get with both of them, discuss how we can do that.
Anything else? Well, if not, we'll move to public comment. And before we call for public comment, I just want to mention the public that are sitting here, you're seeing sausage making in person. And that's probably because, like President Abraham Lincoln, we have a team of rivals here that have, to use the word, different passions. We have a state process that we have to follow through, but we also have experience through past general plans and things that have developed that we're trying to knit stuff together a little tighter than we had before. So with that, I'm going to call for any public comment. Do we have any comment cards?
I do. So
Okay.
just to specify, this is for any topic that has not been agendized. We cannot discuss it. It's just for you to give public comment. The commission cannot comment. We cannot discuss it, but it's something we could possibly agendize for the next meeting. And each person's given 3 minutes. So first we have Wendy Ratner. Please just make sure to talk in the mic.
First of all, thank you for a really interesting meeting, and thank you for the great website that I signed up for. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Wendy Ratner. I live on Tom Mix Trail in Prescott, Arizona. And this is Joanne Ohlers, and I represent Sundog Disconnect, and Joanne is the chair of Save the Dells. And the following statement actually relates quite a bit to today's agenda, because you talked about collaboration, you talked about economic development and ecotourism, and that's right up our alley. And so we represent a very large and growing number of area residents that oppose the construction of the Sundog Connector Highway. And we're not going to go into all of those things because we agree with Ted Camboji. We'd like to meet with you eventually and get into specificity. And I'm glad I could pronounce that word. Today's presentation, and a really good one by your community outreach guru, John Heaney, in promoting ecotourism dollars that could be generated, is we think that the Sundog Corridor is explicitly right up that alley where we can generate tons of ecotourism dollars. And one of the questions Andre Carmen said is, do we lose retail tax money to PV at any point? And we think possibly, if roads are built, and not highways in particular, in this area, we might be diverted and lose some of those tax dollars. the authors of the, you talked about the 2015 general plan. And I remember when I first moved here, I was introduced and I won a raffle, which was a lunch with Elizabeth Ruffner. And right after that lunch, and she was the most amazing person I ever met, I was part of some organization she was part of, and then I started to understand what makes Prescott the way it is. And that woman single-handedly saved our downtown. So, I started to take a look at the general plan and read it, and it was amazing. And the 2015 general plan placed major emphasis, and this is a quote from the plan, preserving and protecting Prescott's unique natural areas for the enjoyment of current and future generations through the judicious use of open space funds. And as Prescott continues to grow, open spaces will be, woven into the fabric of the city, end quote. So we think the proposed 4-lane Sundog Connector Highway is in direct conflict with this intention. Protecting even more of our precious open spaces, and I know this will be good for your next meeting too, will be an economic boon for our city, which is, we think, a more reasonable alternative than overburdening the Prescott City taxpayers with the majority of the construction costs, because most of that road will be in our jurisdiction, and contributing to the loss of Prescott City retail sales tax. That is why we must continue the mission to protect our beautiful and unique Sundog corridor by moving forward in securing and protecting even more land for the Granite Dells Regional Park and preserve to be enjoyed by current and future generations. So we were very pleased to listen to you today, that you seem, you're working towards the process. I know it's a slow and long one, to engage the public because we are ready. We have attended numerous presentations by SIMPO. We have listened to and read local media and think that information needs to be balanced with what our group knows. With our presentation, you'll have the balanced information you need to carefully study. So what we're asking you is, at some point, we would like to make a presentation to you. And with that presentation, you'll have a balanced information that you need to carefully study the issue and collaboratively continue the mission of protecting the beautiful natural topography of Prescott. So we are asking you, when you're ready, to let us give a presentation on all the research that we have done. We are not stopping every single day reviewing all of the documents, all of the proposals, and what the impacts will be on our city and on our region of the Sundog Connector, and to give you realistic alternatives to building that highway that's being proposed. So please consider granting us a study session that would be given in a similar format to Klima's study presentation that you heard on March 8th, and we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, and I hope that will be reflected in the minutes. Okay, do we have any other cards?
Rich Kaplan, did you have something to add to that? You're on, can I have your card next?
I'll just be brief. I'm not going to speak about Sundog, but I am here on behalf of the Yavapai Hills Sundog Committee. If there is another presentation, because I know you guys have spent a lot of time, you heard the SIMPO meeting presentation. I think a lot of the discussion was presented, but we would be happy to participate if there were any future study sessions, and I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Robert Forte? Oh, okay. And that's all I had today. Does anybody else from the public like to speak? Nope. Okay.
I'd like to editorialize a little bit on that. One of the things that we see is that a lot of topics that are controversial are many times oversimplified, and I think a more robust discussion from both sides produces a much better solution. So thank you very much for your public comment. And Tammy, our plan for the next meeting is?
So we have the open space and trails presentation. Then we have the planning for the June 17th open house, where we're going to bring you all the information and ask for your input and any additional information, and try to plan to make sure we have people there, and what booths you'd want to be at to provide information or to man. And we're hoping to have city staff. I'll know more next week about city staff that will be able to attend too. As a reminder, I have a working group of city staff. We meet monthly. We meet the first Wednesday of the month, and we go over the plan and what's coming up and topics and such. And so I have that other group, but we're working in the background to make sure we're providing you guys really accurate information and up-to-date information.
Okay, so, but two things I think need to be on that agenda. One, you need input from all 11 members of what service organizations they belong to and who they can talk to in order to get the word out for the general plan. And I think I've also asked that you provide input to that collaboration discussion today and answers to questions 2, 3, and 4. And you need that by when?
2 weeks before, to make sure that I can scan it all in and get it attached.
Okay.
So probably in the next couple weeks, if you can get it to me, then I can get it attached into the agenda.
As Colonel Hannibal Smith once said, I love it when a plan comes together.
Ted, would you go over again what you want to have inputted? Just make sure we're all together.
Each member identify what service organization they belong to and then would represent our representative to them. And then secondly, on the collaboration, we've covered question 1. You got questions 2, 3, and 4, and we're looking answers for. So type them up and send them in to Tammy.
They're in the packet for today.
Mr. Chair, Deb Thalassides, I'd like to make a suggestion for the agenda that the public comment be moved to the beginning, because it is for items that are not on the agenda, and that would allow us to hear from the public. I think some people left because we went over. That is how the city council does it, so I'd like to make that suggestion. If I needed to make it a motion, I will do so.
Please do.
Done. I move that the agenda be revised so that public comment be placed at the beginning of the agenda of our meetings.
Rod Moyer seconds it. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Don Michaelman.
The reason why is I think we need to have comments after discussion too. So you can have it ahead of time, but you need to have comments after something's been discussed to get input from the public.
Are you willing to amend your proposal?
Well, so the public comment is for items not on the agenda.
Correct,
So,
and that's what I stated. So that would not preclude anyone from making a public comment on a specific item after that item has concluded, the committee's discussion is concluded.
Rod, did you have a comment?
I agree.
Are there any further input? Then the meeting is closed.